Greetings and salutations. Thank you for joining me for yet one more review inspired by Spooky October and some friends on the internet. I've had a couple of people review Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House. I should have checked who they were before I hit play on the camera, but I didn't. So thank you whoever you were. Whilst I've been reading it, I found a couple of other people reviewing The Haunting of Hill House. So apparently it's a very popular novel of which I just never heard. So before we dive into it, I want to say thank you to Jim's Palace of Pleasure for welcoming me into the fold, and I raise a goblet to you. Now, Shirley Jackson is apparently a famous American author, and I'm not saying that I never read any of her work before, but I am saying I really don't remember it, and I am certain I don't own any of it. I will in the future if I find it. Now, a couple of people have told me The Haunting of Hill House is not her best work. We Have Always Lived in the Castle. Is that the one everyone keeps recommending and which I haven't found yet? Anyhow, so I had not read The Haunting of Hill House beforehand, and it starts, well, it's described intermittently as a gothic tale. I think gothic tale is one of the foremost ones. It's also described as a horror. Sure, paranormal, yeah, okay. And in my unfortunate case, as audiobook. So it starts with a doctor called Dr. Montague. Dr. Montague is a scholar, and he is investigating the occult, and he's found this house that he thinks is the perfect house. It's called Hill House. It is apparently a very haunted house. And exactly when this is set, I'm not certain. It was first published in 1959, I believe. So let's assume it's set in the 50s. Dr. Montague sends a whole heap of invitations to a whole heap of people who investigations show have had some sort of spooky occurrences around them, some occult, something weird. Most of them don't reply, which is what you would expect the normal response to be of some random stranger you've never heard of writing you a letter and saying, hey, come spend a week in a haunted house with me writing about you and investigating you and a whole heap of strangers. Most of them don't get back to him, some of them never heard of it. So he ends up with a really small group, and the really small group is a genius move. It means that having this house with 4 main protagonists and 2 side protagonists, you've got lots of develop time, you've got that slow build up, and you've got a lot of ability for people to be alone in unexpected or possibly scary scenarios. So I liked all of that. Now, the 4 who end up there is, first of all, Luke isn't a spooky background person at all. He is actually the nephew or something, I think it's a nephew, of the owner of the house, and as a condition of Dr. Montague renting it, Luke has to go. So he's the normal person. But we learn a little bit of his background, which is he's basically thought he's an orphan, and he's thought of as being unreliable, and the aunt is glad to get him out of her hair for a while, so she sends him off. Another one who accepted is Theodora. Theodora is described lightly in the early chapters as of a bohemian nature, and she took off essentially because she's had a disagreement with a friend and she needs a bit of distance, so she accepts the invitation, turns up at Hill House. But our main protagonist is Eleanor. We first learn about her from herself. We travel with her on her journey to Hill House, and we spend most of the time from her point of view, though not first person. Thank goodness not first person. Eleanor was a sticking point for me in enjoying this book, which ultimately I did, but not without effort. So we've got her described as a young woman. I believe she's actually in her 30s or late 20s, but very, very isolated and emotionally immature, so she comes across as younger. She's friendless and familyless. She spent her whole life taking care of an ailing mother who has recently died, and who was apparently absolutely hideous to her. She is now staying in the back room of her sister and her sister's husband's house, and they treat her appallingly as well, as far as we can gather. And Eleanor actually is meant to own half of her sister's car, but isn't ever allowed to use it. She ends up stealing the car and travelling to Hill House on her own without having told her sister and her brother-in-law exactly where she's going. And we follow this whole trip of hers, and it's an emotional and mental trip as well as a physical one, but it's how we come to learn so much about Eleanor and her weird suspension of reality, because her life has been so restricted and is now in such turmoil, and she's going to Hill House. And the journey is good. Our first sighting of Hill House, and it's described as this looming malignant presence, is good. Eleanor reaches the gate, and the caretaker Dudley initially refuses to let her in, and you've got this whole interchange, and the whole thing is establishing Eleanor as this desperately insecure in her own persona individual. And yeah, she gets to Hill House, no one else is there, but while she's there, Theodora turns up. There's an instant bonding. Eleanor admires Theodora's wit, je ne sais quoi, and her general confidence, and Theodora is attracted to we gather, Eleanor's fragility and childlike behaviour. Then Dr. Montague and Luke turn up. The descriptions of the house are brilliant. The house is 2 stories, and the spookiness is all in the house, as you would expect. There's some odd little touches of moving grass and stuff thrown in as well. The attempts to spook are the sort of attempts that can come from inside your own head for the most part, and I like that. Hill House itself is apparently, the bottom story has got a wraparound veranda, but inside there's many rooms with no outer wall. So you've got no window, you've got no outlet. It's very easy to get lost. Many of them are dark. The door's always shut, even if you're wedging them open. There's the bedrooms upstairs are all one colour, so you have an entirely blue room, which I believe is where Eleanor is sleeping. You've got I don't know if you have a red room. You should have a red room. Red room. Anyhow, sorry about that. So we have this slow build-up of pressure, of spooky events, and we have this slow disintegration of relations within our protagonists, and the slow disintegration of persona within Eleanor. So there's a lot that's happening. There are definitely unexplained events, and there are definitely spooky haunted house type events, such as the knocking on doors when everyone's in their bedrooms. There is a strange episode where they're investigating the house on their second day, and they go to the nursery. Before you go into the nursery, there's this one spot where 2 figures on the walls staring at, and it's icy cold there. Though when the doctor tries to measure the temperature, nothing comes up. I did like the whole vibe of it, and I did love the way the house is described as malignant and unpleasant, and I liked the story overall. I do agree with all the people who have told me that this is a good story which I should read, and I have enjoyed doing that. It was very much a spooky October read. The ending grabbed me. What shall I say? Okay. This isn't spoiler. This is the downside, because all of that was the good stuff. Now we're heading into the not good stuff, and none of it is the fault of Shirley Jackson or the actual book itself, which I do want to one day purchase and read for myself with my eyes. My problem lies with the narrator, and it's a big problem. As those of us who have a fondness for audiobooks knows, a narrator can make or break a story. I won't rave about some of the excellent narrators I've had this year. I've done enough of that. But this narrator was Bernadette Dunne. In the late 90s, Bernadette Dunne was a well-acknowledged actress, and she was introduced to audiobooks. I think she started working for Blackstone Audio around about the same time. She has apparently won awards. She is very, very well acknowledged, well known. And she passed away, I believe, in 2010. So there's pluses and minuses to that fact for me. I can say what I truly think. I thought she was the worst possible narrator for this book. And yet she's been lauded by many other people. There are reviews online that say what a wonderful job she did. I think she did an absolute shit job. I nearly DNF'd this book so many times. And if it wasn't a spooky October read that I'd set for myself, I would have stopped reading it and gone away and found the actual book. Her audio voice is actually a great voice, and when she sticks to her audio voice, it's great. She did Dr. Montague well, she did Luke well, and and Theodora, yeah, okay. But our main narrator is Eleanor. Eleanor, the young woman who Bernadette Dunne
narrates in this crackly little voice. It's like she's a geriatric 80-year-old white-haired woman. Eleanor this, oh, I feel this, oh, that's a chair. I am Eleanor,
she says all the time, and I wanted to punch something, which is not the thing that you want to be feeling when you're listening to an audio book in the car, traveling down the highway at 110 kilometers an hour. You do not want to be trying to punch things at that point in your life. And I didn't, but I wanted to. So this creaky, crotchety old woman voice, at first I just thought maybe they got a really old woman to do it. And Bernadette Dunne did pass away at the age of 84, but I think she was fairly young still when she narrated it.
And so you've got this.
And what's worse? I hate this when audio narrators do this. You've got a person that you're trying to establish as fragile, so what you do is as soon as she's saying anything,
you start whispering. Oh, said Eleanor. I am Eleanor. That is a chair. Oh dear.
And how do you think that goes down when you're listening on audio? Not everyone listens to an audiobook with their finger on the volume, waiting for Eleanor to start whispering at you. No, I don't. Do you? I bet you don't. I bet most people don't. So between the
quaky, criminally voice
and the whispering all the time, Eleanor was blindsidingly annoying in the narration. And that is why I spent the first quarter of this book seriously considering DNFing it as an audio, but I knew I couldn't get it physically in October, and so I continued. Then Theodora arrives at the house after Eleanor. The two women make friends, and Theodora is narrated nicely. She's narrated like a real human being. And that forms a problem as well, because Theodora and Eleanor have a number of conversations, especially earlier in the book. And Theodora's speaking like this, and Eleanor's speaking like this. And again, you can't hear one, or the other one blasts your eardrums out. So the narration, in my opinion, was all the things that I loathe in a bad narration for the first half of the book. Have I finished whinging and whining? Possibly not, except Bernadette Dunne's actual narration voice was really good, and the other characters were all really good. Mrs. Dudley was excellent, not that she said too much, but it was really good. So the Dudleys, by the way, are the caretakers. Mr. Dudley at the gate trying to stop Eleanor from coming in. Mrs. Dudley, who is locked on repeat for most of the book, is I clear breakfast at 10. Great character. Both of them are the perfect accompaniments to Hill House. So Shirley Jackson, well done. I loved what you did there. Bernadette Dunne, you could have done better, but I'll forgive you. Now, later in the book, so around about the halfway mark, I was still thinking, do I continue or don't I continue? And I wasn't sure really what I wanted to do there. However, in the last third, I'm going to say, this book had hooked me so hard that even Eleanor's voice, which had calmed down anyway, Even Eleanor's voice wasn't enough to annoy me. There was no chance of me stopping. I actually put the earbuds in and listened at times I wouldn't normally be listening to an audiobook. I had the audio propped up on the counter while I was chopping onions for dinner because I really wanted to know how this progressed. I was really loving the progression of the story. It was all the good stuff. Spoilers? Not really. I don't think you can spoiler this book. There is a haunted element, but I think your sophisticated reader of literature, gothic or haunting, is going to realize fairly early on that a large part of this haunting is Eleanor, which is why Dr. Montague has actually invited her. When she was a small child, there was a haunting-ish, maybe poltergeist-ish, a number of events around the house that she and her sister were living in, and that's why she's been invited. Eleanor herself, has forgotten these events, and when Dr. Montague in the first night tells them about it, that's when we find just how disturbed she might be over that and not remembering it. Her mother always told her it was neighbours being malicious. Cool stuff, great stuff, good story. Towards the end, the spooky escalates, especially when Mrs. Montague and some rando she brings with her comes for the weekend and starts playing around with Ouija boards or planchettes or whatever, and talking about how the spirits of the dear departed are full of love. That was great. I love the fact that Shirley Jackson is simultaneously giving us a haunted story of gothic proportions and mocking people who are into spiritualism. Not that I object to people being into spiritualism, but certainly the early spiritualism of the 30s through to 50s was funny in a lot of ways, and it's worth highlighting those funninesses, I think. Now, I have seen one reviewer on BookTube who says that this spiritualist planchette stuff, having it at the end, it would have made more sense at the beginning, but I actually thought that was a perfect point, because you had all these events happening amongst all the characters and the house, and it's all happening, and we've reached a point where we're teetering on a story concluding, but we haven't seen its ending. The ending is not in sight. And that's when we have two more characters into the mix and everything swirls over, and they are the pressure point that push us into the ending of this story, which I thought was really good. The last few pages are perfect for this story and our characters, and I'm not going to spoiler them. But at the end, you've got the house once again taking center stage as part of the gothic element with this tower that someone climbs late at night. Anyway, one more from Spooky October. This is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. I really don't know if I've ever read any other Shirley Jackson, but thank you to all the people on BookTube who have recommended this, because I thoroughly enjoyed the writing in this and I will be looking for more. I suspect that I will be looking for the Penguin Classic editions rather than any more audiobooks. I don't think I can cope with another audiobook. I certainly can't cope with another audiobook from Bernadette Dunne. I feel like right now in my life, Bernadette Dunne on an audiobook is enough for me to swipe left. Great book though. Do recommend. Have a great day. Thanks for listening. If you're still here, maybe comment, especially if you have read The Haunting of Hill House or Shirley Jackson. I think a lot of us are reading Shirley Jackson this month, and I think The Haunting of Hill House, many of us seem to have. So, let me know if I'm right, let me know if I'm wrong, let me know what you thought. Have a great day, read good books, and thanks for watching.